Now we call to order. Celia, will you please call out roll?
Yes. Kevin Alltucker,
Here.
Denise Diamond,
I watched your lip here.
Here.
Austin Fulnagi,
Here.
Lisa Fragola,
Here.
Sophie Gibson,
Here.
Steve Mattel,
Here.
Zach Mulholland,
Here.
Julie Weisman.
Here.
Great. First item on the agenda will be the land recognition. Will Mark Jordan please provide the land recognition?
I'd like to start our meeting with acknowledgement, that the land we are on is traditional homeland of the Kalapua. Sorry, nervous. Where the Stewarts she was the Kalapua.
Kalapuya people?
Yes. We're stewards of of this very land for over 14,000 years before their traditional way of life was forever disappeared. We start our meeting with humanity, and gosh, I read this so many times.
Reverence.
For the original inhabitants of the Kalapua.
Thank you, Mark Jordan.
Thanks.
Yes.
Sorry.
Nah, you're
Very
good.
good. Thank you very much. Next is agenda adoption. Do I have a motion to adopt the September 18th board work session agenda?
I'll move to adopt the agenda.
Okay, so moved in a second.
Second.
Okay. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Hi.
And all opposed, please say no. Okay, motion passes unanimously. Next on the agenda is we do not have please as the equity lens, so please note that the equity lens has been provided for the board's reference. And then with regards to responses to information requests, there were no requests for information this month, so there's no responses to information requests. So we'll move on to discussion items. So first up on discussion items is the program spotlight. Do you want to introduce this, President?
I'd be happy to. We'll have Dr. Joyce come to the podium here and introduce the program spotlight. Dr. Joyce.
All right. Hello, everyone. Board President Bolger. I want to introduce Director of Student Life, Becca Maley, Leadership, and she's going to be talking about and also introducing our students and others about what's going on in student leadership here. And also welcome weeks. So if you wouldn't mind all coming up, and if you could all introduce yourselves, that'd be nice. Yeah. We got a couple of students here as well.
We're doing some multitasking while we're here. Thank you all so much for having us here. It really is an honor to be spotlighted as a program. I've been working here for about 7 months now, and just kind of have the honor of just sharing a little bit more about myself, the team, what student life is as an overall branch, and like what our students are doing to make LCC just that much more fun and really bring that empowerment to them and the student leadership that they earn outside of the classroom here. So if you don't mind moving on to the next slide. So a little about me. I am Becca Maley. This is my dog, Winifred. I have always had a passion of just creating spaces for students really enjoy creating programs with the intentionality of sneaking vegetables with, if you will. And so really coming to Lane has provided that opportunity to really be with the students, encourage them to develop on their own. And as someone who's always been a supervisor to students, this is now a unique challenge to be an advisor, to encourage them to grow, to fail, to learn, and continue on with that. I'd like to continue introducing the team with Liz. Liz is the admin support for us. Her next slide. She has her proud animals of Haley and Luca. She has been with the team for, was it 14 plus years?
At Lane's 17. In line.
Yeah, and she's been a huge support in this office, not to just me and understanding the various policies and procedures, the various elements to support students, but is a huge support to our students. They like to call her work mom, and is a really just great supporter to understanding the ins and outs of LCC, and something that has given me the opportunity to have a foundation with that. If you don't mind the next slide. So what does student life and leadership does? Like many community colleges, it's a jack of all trades. Everyone does a lot of, holds a lot of different hats, and student life is no different. We handle a lot of the large scale events. So y'all are always invited to commencement, welcome week. I'm the committee chair. That also supports the resource fair. We also have included in week 3, a job fair for on-campus student employment. Week 4 is going to be that club and organizational fair. So that was what our office is really focusing on, is that student engagement, belonging in those spaces, and just creating those opportunities. In addition to my role, I had mentioned that I'm an advisor for Lane Student Government Association. Council of Clubs is another organization, along with the student activity fee, which you all get to have their approval at the end of the academic year. I also supervise our mascot. We have a excellent team. I don't know if y'all saw that at commencement, very good dancers. I also oversee the Titan Food Pantry and Closet, along with the editor of Titan Times, which is very similar to, if you know, Lane Weekly. This is a student newsletter that all students have access to, and it's a great platform for communication. So next slide, pretty please. So some of the overall successes of 23-24 is just the series of engagement opportunities. You all have seen many of these images before in collaboration with Open House, really putting us on the market of what does LCC have to offer to our outside community. We brought a lot of fun with the Spring Festival. This was a collaboration event with Council of Clubs and student government that had an attendance of close to like 300 participants, including staff, faculty, students as well. But really what has been really proud to see is the engagement from the students in student elected positions. There are 14 elected positions available between the Lane Student Government Association and the student activity fee. We had 26 applicants. That has been a very considerable increase from what I've been told. But more importantly, thanks to our partnership with ATC and utilizing the resources we have on campus, Moodle, I mentioned, is the platform for Titan Times. We were able to identify all student activity fee paying students. These are those who have the eligibility to run for student government, who have the voice on the student activity fee. We were able to identify all these students and send direct messages saying, vote. These are your student leaders. You have a voice, you have the right, you should know what is going on. And that led to a 700% increase in voting than from before.
Nice.
So utilizing these resources we already have and being willing to be curious and ask those questions, how do we continue to build this up? So those are really some of the main ones that I've been very happy to see, because our students are wanting to get out, they're wanting to be engaged. And if you go to the next slide, I'll speak a little bit more to that as well. I mean, that really speaks the truth of it, is just a student elected, is that you have such a great group coming in. And let me tell you, they are not afraid to speak. They're not afraid to be involved. They want to know what's going on. They want to know you all. And so I'm really feeling fortunate to be part of that growth with them and navigating, how do I support you to work with y'all, and having that make Lane the best it could be. So I'd like to introduce and have student government kind of introduce themselves and what they want to do for the next year. So Steph, you want to start it?
Would you like me to come up there?
Sure. Next slide, please.
Board and President Bolger. My name is Sophie Gibson. I'm the president of the Student Government Association. And first and foremost, I just want to say that I feel really lucky both ways for you and Liz to be on our team advising me. So yeah, we have a couple of things going on right now. We have weeks of welcome. I have a flyer I'll hand out here momentarily, but our main focus about these weeks of welcome is getting students as soon as they come here, because fall term is a huge time of the year for students returning to college or new fresh faces. And so it's really important to get them as soon as they come here, that they feel welcome and see a face that looks like them, a student face that knows the struggles of being a student. And so that's why we're pairing with the College Committee Welcome Week to put on a couple of events during the first week. We'll be doing pancakes on Monday and pancakes with the presidents on Tuesday. That will not only show students that we're here to support them, but also we'll be able to take them in their hands metaphorically to their classes, show them around the campus, make them feel like it's not so big and scary to be at this place as many students feel that it is. And so then moving on to the next week, we will have resource fair. And I feel that getting that in the second week is also super important because, one, we pay for a lot of the resources here on campus with our student activity fee, with the health clinic fee, all of those lovely things. And our students have a right to know about them. And also, right out the bat, we need to make sure that our students have their artillery belt of tools, because how are we going to do well in our classes if we don't have someone to watch our child, or if we don't have food and we're hungry? So that's why resource fair is really important to get it right out the door. So we'll be doing that in the second week. The third week, we'll have the job event. So that is also really important because students coming to LCC come here for so much more than just a lecture or to go to class. We need to learn about how to go out and be in the real world. I know this is the real world, but we're going to get jobs and we're going to need to learn how to act at those jobs and how to, be members of society more than just a college student. So that's why it's really important in that third week to get the event. I think it's with, who are we pairing with for
The job fair?
yeah.
So that email has gone out to all of campus saying if you are in need of student employment, this is through Let's, Learn and Earn, Work Study, other student employment, I believe is the term. This is just that opportunity. I know this is something that's very important to the presidents, important to the college, again, to have those skills. And so we're trying to meet them in the middle because we're developing in the classroom. How else can we develop them outside of the classroom when we know
Exactly.
that there's opportunity for them to have ownership on campus? Because as you can see with these students, they're pretty proud of the work that they do for LCC, and we want to make sure people see that.
Thank you, Becca. And so then moving past that, we will have club fair, and that will be just a really fun thing for students to engage because we all have our own personal identities and we should all be bringing them to the college because that's what makes it Lane Community College. Let's be real here. All of our identities coming together and that we're able to share and find people that are similar to us and different from us. And so we'll have a club fair. That will be very fun. And then moving past that into late October, we'll have painting pumpkins and presidents where President Bolger and myself will serve pizza and students will be able to paint pumpkins. And that it shows that we're a friendly face and that we're always here for our students and that we want to engage with them and again, make them feel like they belong here and that it's not always just a test or a lecture. Like I said, it's a fun place to be and the right place for them to be. So yeah, I think past that, I'm just really glad to be with this team. And again, thank you, Becca and Liz, and thank you, Board of Education and President Bolger. Should I pass these out?
Sure. I'd like to invite Jordan and Sophie, more of our Lane student government members. Dang it. I'm so sorry. I panicked. It's Emma.
My name is Jordan Myers. I'm the vice president for the Student Government Association. So I'll be filling in for Sophie if she ever doesn't make it, which probably will never happen. I will say ditto to what Sophie said. We do have excellent student life and leadership staff, and we're really grateful for them. Transitioning in this position was really seamless because of them, and they've given us a lot of confidence to be able to take over and work on these goals that we have. A little bit about me. I'm an older non-traditional student. I'm 33 years old. This is my second time in college. I went to Western Oregon University, studied medicinal chemistry, and dropped out and started a life. I'm a little bit involved in civics. I sit on as a voting member on the Equity Programs Advisory Board for Lane County, representing District 1. I used to be the vice president of the board of directors for Head Start of Oregon in 2019, 2020. And I work for a couple nonprofits locally, including being a program director for a local nonprofit called Back to Youth. So I really like civics. I really like working in my community. And I'm here to study biochemistry. In terms of student government, my goal at student government, I think, is very much the same as Sophie's. We've seen this uptick in enrollment, and we really want to jump on that momentum bandwagon and try to grab all the students that are coming in so that they don't transition to online classes before they have a chance to find out how wonderful it is to be on this campus. So we really want to try to bring school spirit back. We really want to improve engagement in sports and activities and on campus activities. Additionally, we are coming up to a long legislative session here at the state. So we want to really try to take advantage of that. We had a conference this summer where we made contact with other community college student governments and came up with some sort of plan to kind of figure out how to work on an advocacy plan and get students engaged and get them up to those legislative sessions so that we can advocate for students. So we look forward to you guys' support, and thank you very much for having us today.
Thank you.
Hi, good evening, everyone. My name is Emma Duncan. I am a second-year student here at Lane Community College, and I'm also an upcoming senator as well for the Student Government Association. This upcoming year, I'm also going to be working with the Oregon Student Association as a student organizer for the Student Organizer Coalition as well. I was not expecting to speak tonight, so I apologize if any of my words are superfluous in this meeting. I just want to say that as also a non-traditional student, and as someone that thought that they were never going to be a student, who thought they were never going to be a leader, I can say that since coming to Lane and seeing the support that has been provided by the faculty here and you folks as the Board of Education, it's completely changed who I thought I was going to be. And I couldn't ever be more grateful for that. I was not the proudest when I told my friends and family that I was going to community college. But as soon as I completed my first term here, I understood why it was called community college. And that is something that I'm incredibly proud of. It's something that I stand with and that I want to show other students. I want to show people, I want to show the people that are being engaged here that there is a sense of pride, no matter what background you're coming from, non-traditional or even traditional, coming to a community college. There is no shame in that. I want everyone, especially within our community, to know that you being here, the students walking on this campus, they're already making so much progress and so much change. And I really do want to reemphasize that idea of having pride, school spirit, and understanding what it means to be a community college and putting emphasis back into what it is, and hopefully communicating not only in our district, but outwardly, even beyond that, that community college isn't less than any other kind of college. We're doing everything everybody else is doing, and we're on the same level. There's no reason to look down upon what we've built and what we've established. And I really, really want to put that pride back into what we're doing. And with the help of you folks and with the help of our faculty here, I see that it's absolutely possible. And that really lit the fire under me to involve myself with this government, with the student government. And I'm incredibly excited to see what we're going to do together, all of us. And I am excited to see the progress we're going to make, not only within our own college, but within our own district, maybe even nationwide at one point. But overall, thank you again for having us, and thank you for letting us speak on that behalf. Thank you.
Like I said, they're very well spoken and they will say what they want to say. If you don't mind going to the next slide. So Kat Taber is featured here with her husband, Robin. Unfortunately, she's unable to make it today. She lost her pet, but she is the Student Activity Fee Committee Chair. This is another student elected position that is very important to LCC and the development of the students. Just as a brief synopsis of what is the student activity fee, if you're unaware of it, it's a student-led group responsible for deciding how the activity fee essentially is used. It helps fund various student programs such as the Learning Garden, Lane Student Government Association, athletics, the list goes on. And this essentially, the committee is to assure that this money that is being spent by students who are accredited students on the main campus is going back to these students in a rewarding way. This is a student-led initiative. As I mentioned, I'm the advisor for that. And these different fee-funded groups have the opportunity to share a budget narrative, to speak and have a Q&A with the students. And then the students get to reflect upon this as to where does this fee go? Does it increase? Does it decrease? What are the needs of the students at this time? I'm very fortunate to say that working in collaboration with Jonathan from the director of the budget, he's coming on as a consultant, so he's providing that level of education as well about what is a budget. And again, how does this go back to the students? So it's a very holistic approach that will come from the committee with a recommendation to President Bolger, who then will pass along to you all to accept this. So that is, I think there might be one more slide. So yeah, in sum, like we're ready for 2024, 2025, and look forward to any questions you may have for myself or the students that are here. Thanks.
Thank you.
There's no questions. I can also leave.
Austin. Oh, I'm sorry, Austin.
No worries. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Fantastic. Well, first off, thank you for this presentation. Thank you. The Community College Association. We look forward to advocating alongside with you all with fighting for students, fighting for higher education, and funding for higher education. So I appreciate the advocacy you all are doing with Oregon Student Association, and having actually sat in on a student government meeting. You guys are amazing at solving problems, dealing with various issues, and finding excellent solutions to those problems. So I really want to compliment you on your work and the fact that you've stepped up to be in your position. And I just wanted to take a quick moment here just to advocate for students. We've done a lot to make more students board meeting. Last year, we installed the president to sit on the board so they could be a part of our conversations. But I also just want to advocate for students. We had a best practice of having students speak first during public comment. And I want to make sure that we continue those practices as a board. We're getting this presentation. We love to hear from our students. We'd love to see how we're supporting our students. And I think that there's also actions as a board that we can do to support our students. One of those is making sure that students get to speak first at public comment. So just wanted to advocate for that. Excellent presentation, and I appreciate the work that you all do. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Denise.
There we go. Is it? It's unmuted. Thank you for such an excellent, enthusiastic presentation. I really enjoyed all aspects of it. I'm interested in knowing how the opportunities for student workers are, if that seems like there's enough opportunities or staying about the same. For some students, that's a very important feature in balancing class schedules with some income. And I'm just wondering if we have any additional information, or I can wait for it for another time. Thank you.
Well, I can give you a student perspective. This is actually my passion project, is to get the wage higher than minimum wage for student work studies and other student jobs. The demand for a student to get their full work study right now, and work study is 15 hours a week. If you're in a full-time class load or the expected load of 15 hours, you're expected to do between 30 to 45 hours of homework and studying in a week. In addition to that 15 hours of work, just to make $800 a month, it's a little rough on a student. And I think that economically, it disadvantages students who rely on work study to take up part of their financial aid package. So I think it's very reasonable to raise the minimum wage for work study positions to $20 an hour so that students only have a 10-hour a week commitment. I don't think that the work studies are working work studies. I've worked several here at Lane Community College as well as at Western Oregon University. And I don't think that I needed to be there for 15 hours a week to be effective within the program or within the department that I was in. I think 10 hours a week would have been just fine, as some of those hours I spent doing homework. which wasn't always the case, but that did help out solving the first problem. But I do think that in terms of opportunities, it's kind of hit or miss. If you are a student who is not eligible for aid, then you have very limited opportunities at community colleges for the most part. Lane does okay. We do have the Let's program. So there are some opportunities for students, but not all students can get financial aid. And if they can't get financial aid, they can't get work study, and they're not eligible to work those work study positions. Most of the student worker positions on the campus are work study positions. So considering that community colleges do have a lot of non-traditional students, a lot who might not be receiving financial aid, you're limiting the ability for students to pick up jobs on campus right there. So yeah, I have a lot of issues with the work programs for students at the moment. I don't think they're the worst, but I think there's a lot that could be done that could improve the quality of life for students working on campus.
Thank you.
I'll just say, since I've started here, that was an area that I felt was missing when I've have attended other universities, worked at other institutions, and that was just a gap. And so when I had brought it up in the Welcome Week committee, other people jumped on board and said, let's just do it. So that's what we're trying to do, is just put it out there in front. I also know that Handshake is something that is really starting to be talked about. It's a great platform to connect students to jobs, both on campus and off campus. It's very user friendly. I'm really excited to see it really get implemented at LCC. So I really don't have an answer for you as to what is the true factor of it. I just, as far as the communication that I've seen, it's limited. So that's just, I'm not the professional on that topic, but it was just something that people said, let's do it.
Lisa.
Thank you very much. I have a squeaky mic tonight for the presentation and for the work that you're doing. It's great to hear from students and from you, Sophie. I'm curious, could you describe the demographics of the new student government that was just elected?
Yeah.
Great. I'm actually very excited about the team that I'm a part of this year. So we have the 10 positions, 2 executive officers, Jordan and myself. Jordan is a father, and so that is, a non-traditional student. We have a older gentleman, Chad Larson. He is really awesome. He's 55, and so it's really nice to get that perspective from someone who's returning to community college after having a plethora of experience in life. And we have several international students from various parts of the world. And so it's really great to have, I think we have them from
It's 50-50 on international students with the rest of the
which I think is really great. We have people from 4 different countries, and then also we have a mother as well. And then we also have traditional students as well, like myself. And so I think it's really great. We have age, different life backgrounds, and also different nationalities. So I think that's really great to get a bunch of different student voices onto one team together to work all in one.
Great, thanks.
Yeah, thank you, Lisa, for that question.
Julie.
I just want to say thank you. Having been a past student government member in community colleges in my youth, it's really exciting. I'm sure you saw a big, huge smile on my face the whole time you were all talking, because it's very inspiring, and you're just, I just can't say enough how much I'm happy that you're leaning into leadership, what the future provides for you, and the changes that you'll make on the campus. And so anything that we can do as a board to support that effort and have you be successful as students and representing the rest of the campus, I'm just really excited about it. So thank you for the presentation, and thank you for being your awesome, authentic selves.
Any other questions or comments from board members? Okay, seeing none, just thanks very much for the presentation. Very exciting to see the plans for the first few weeks roll out, and just appreciate all the things that you and student government are doing for our campus.
Thanks. And if you ever want to stop by on Tuesdays and Thursdays in Center 201, that's where student government will be having public and work sessions as well at 4 o'clock. Thank you all.
Okay, with that, the next item on our agenda is a parliamentary procedure training. We have Vince Adams from the Oregon School Board Association joining us for this presentation. And so I will leave it to you.
I feel like I've been set up. I mean, we had 30 minutes of an amazing presentation. I just want to say, you know, as an outsider coming in and just seeing your students come up and speak about what's happening in your institution, y'all should be proud that you are stepping up and empowering students, young adults in this way. I was just completely blown away. So great work, all of you. Just really impressed. And I feel really nervous now that I have to get up behind you and try to impress these people. Hi, everyone. My name is Vince Adams. I'm a board development specialist with the Oregon School Boards Association, which is just a fancy way of saying I am a trainer for school boards. I typically work with K-12 boards, but today I'm working with a college board, and that's okay because, you know, board work really is similar when you look across organizations, when you look at, you know, school boards versus a city council versus a college board versus a nonprofit board. Board governance, there's a lot of commonality across that. And so, and of course, we often use parliamentary procedure to organize our meetings. So another thing I wanted to touch on is that, you know, a boardroom is a really stilted, uncomfortable place. Poor Jordan, when he came in here, and, you know, trying to speak to you, this is a really good example of how uncomfortable it can be for people to be in this space. And parliamentary procedure is complicit in that. We build that, and I mean, it acts as a barrier for access. And so again, I'm really impressed. Your students seem very, very comfortable speaking their unvarnished truth to you, which is speaks highly of you. So, my understanding is that we have a hard stop at 7:45. Is that correct? So, thanks a lot for the time. So I have a slide deck. It guides me because otherwise I'll go off the rails and I don't know what I'll be talking about. So we're going to talk about parliamentary procedure, and in particular, essential parliamentary procedure. Because the reality is to get our work done, we don't need this whole book. This book. Listen to it. That's a big book. There's a lot in there. You do not need this book. I use this book because I advise boards on parliamentary procedure, and sometimes it's important for me to quote chapter and verse. But you don't need this book. Please don't buy that book. But essential. What is essential according to whom? Well, on the screen I have, I pulled this content from our own or OSBA's parliamentary procedure guide, which is pretty good. It's pretty good. I'm a big fan of Anne McFarland. Does anybody know who Anne McFarland or Jurassic Parliament? I saw a slight nod from Celia. Yeah, Lisa, yeah. So the book that Lisa's referring to is this one, Mastering Council Meetings. So, Anne McFarland currently lives in Washington. She does a lot of work there. She travels all over the country. She's actually a national treasure. Wonderful woman, brilliant parliamentarian, and has published this book, Mastering Council Meetings, that has all kinds of really cool tips and tricks to get the most out of your meetings. I am a disciple of Anne McFarland. I really like her, and I like her approach to parliamentary procedure. So if you're looking to improve your meetings, this is a great resource. I'm also a fan of Jim Slaughter. I want to say he lives in Pennsylvania. I'm probably getting that wrong. Anyway, he's an attorney and has a really wonderful approach, a succinct approach to parliamentary procedure, and does a good job explaining it. So when I say essential parliamentary procedures, it's according to these three sources of expertise. I am not a parliamentarian. I am a recovering school board member. And so I chaired my own school board, and I come to this from a very pragmatic and practical standpoint. I've made all the mistakes. And so you get to learn from my wisdom. So I don't have all the answers, but I have most of the answers. And I'm here to share some really good news is that you really don't need that much Everything that you need to do to get your work done, the vast majority of it is on the one-page document that's sitting in front of you. And I've shared with the board secretary that document, so it can be sent to your members that are with us online. So everything you need to know about Parley Pro to get your work done, do the work of this board, is right there. And so we're going to go over that content. Okay, what's next, Vince? Ooh, this is one of my strong axioms. Robert serves the board, not the other way around. The board has work to get done. You do not need to be a slave to meeting procedure. Follow your rules, but if you need to break them or adjust them with unanimous consent, you can do that. So make sure that your meeting procedures are serving the board and serving the work that you're trying to do. Making sure that it's serving your community, not the other way around, not that we're being slave to this big tome of rules and using arcane rules to maneuver and slow down our meetings. So keep this in the back of your mind. Are our meeting procedures serving the work that we need to be doing? Okay. So how does the board take action? Don't overthink it.
They vote and discuss
What do they vote on, Julie?
the discussed motion.
Yeah, a motion. We make a motion. And a motion is just a proposal. It's a way to propose an idea or action for the board to consider. Okay, we're going right back to basics. So the thing with Robert is it's really, really linear. Understand that not all the work that you're doing, and sometimes you need to throw Robert out of the room. Sometimes you need to have conversations that are much more rich than what you're going to be doing with Robert. Robert is great for decision making. It's what it was designed for. So it's very linear in structure. You only get to consider one motion at a time, one thing at a time. But sometimes we have to have conversations that aren't like that. So if we're going to have hard topics, when we were meeting in, having dinner before this, we were talking about books and libraries and the controversy around that. Well, if you wanted to talk about that, you probably don't want to do that in the context of a business meeting. And you don't want to be using Robert to do that. That's going to be in a work session. That's going to be an open-ended conversation. And it's not going to be linear in nature. You're going to be talking about what you believe in, what you think is right, what's wrong. Okay. So when we're talking about parliamentary procedure, we're talking about business meetings, we're talking about decision making. And for that purpose, it's pretty good. Robert does a pretty good job. It does a good job of ensuring that everybody gets heard and that everybody has input. Okay. So we only get to consider one motion at a time. So it's very linear in nature. I highly recommend putting motions in writing. And if you're coming up with a new motion, a novel motion, this is bonus points if you do this, because you have a board secretary who's desperately trying to take minutes, or someone in this room is trying to take minutes right now. Okay. If you key your actual motion if you have a laptop in front of you, type it in and email it to them in the chair, it goes a long way to facilitating your meeting. A, it's clear, it's going to get in the record. And B, your chair then has the text of your motion in front of them. So if that doesn't work for you, because I'm noticing that Lisa's the only board member that has a laptop in front of her, at least here in the meeting, we have 3 online. So clearly you're looking at a machine. Jot it down on a piece of paper. Take those 2 minutes to be clear and get your language straight. Write clearly. Yeah, that's obvious. What else? Phrase in the grammatical positive, which is to say we write motions about things we're going to do. You don't write motions about what we're not going to do. So it's all about taking action, not stopping an action or anything like that. Does that make sense? Any questions? And I just should back up. I used to work for the Extension Service. I mentioned that I worked at OSU earlier today. So this is a workshop. At any point, stop me, ask questions. We can have a conversation. Everybody's sitting here staring at me like, it's like, not my normal thing. So feel free to stop me and have a conversation.
Hey, I'm going to take you up on that.
Yeah, do it, Kevin.
So oftentimes in a public meeting, the novel motion process is happening in a hurry, and there's some benefit of getting a motion stated first.
Mm-hmm.
So you're suggesting, to write it and email it, or write it down and pass it to the chair, or, I mean, do the benefits of that outweigh perhaps you losing the first slot?
The first, making up time. I think clarity trumps time.
Okay.
What we don't want is confusion. Because if I say something, if I come up with this elaborate motion and say it, I'm probably going to forget part of it after it leaves my mouth.
Yeah.
And I've experienced that. And then my chair, poor guy, he has to capture what I just said and has to restate the motion. My goodness. Yeah. So just taking a moment to jot it down. And if it doesn't work for you to email it, that's fine. But I do recommend jotting it down on a piece of paper and then you rip it off your legal pad and hand it down the table so that we're clear. So everyone is crystal clear. Yeah, everybody on the board, but also everybody in the community as well is clear about what it is the board is about to do. So, and you'll see here in just a minute, we have to restate the motion 3 times in the process. Yeah, Zach.
Austin, looks like you have your hand raised.
Yeah, can you hear me okay?
I can, Austin, go.
Fantastic. So yeah, I feel like there's Robert's rules and there's Bob's rules, but here in regards to motions is friendly amendments. That's the time period I want Robert to leave the room, and I want to, expedite just a minor edit to a motion that is friendly in nature and it fits the context of the main motion and so forth. And I just wanted to get your take on friendly amendments, especially in a public meeting forum like this.
Yeah, Austin, you're not going to like my answer. I'm not.
I know.
I don't support friendly amendments. This is, again, we want to be clear. You're doing the public's work. And this is something that we need to take a little seriously. It doesn't have to be overly serious, but it is something that we want to take seriously and we want to be clear on. Yeah, Sophie.
What is a friendly amendment?
So, great question.
Good.
Go, Austin. Explain it.
A friendly amendment is essentially that you're making a minor adjustment to a motion or a motion being made by a board member. Essentially, yeah. Now, what you'll see in this document is that there is a motion to amend or rescind. That is, so to amend essentially is a modification in the wording of the motion. That requires a vote, whereas a friendly amendment doesn't necessarily require a vote because it's minor in its minors in its changes essentially. So a friendly amendment also doesn't have to be voted upon, whereas an amendment to a motion does have to be voted upon. It takes up more time, but as stated, it does create that clarification and that kind of paper trail for that motion.
Thank you.
And we'll go through the amendment process here in just a little bit. And it is, what Austin's trying to avoid is the complexity of amendments because they are complex. You'll see just how complex they get. Okay, so an example motion. This is a really pedestrian one. I move to approve the board minutes from the regular business meeting on August 15th, 2024 as presented. How many times have we made motions like that? But the board is taking action to approve a document. This is not a trivial thing. You are sealing a public record. We treat this as a routine, trivial thing, but it's really not. These are actually important. So let's see. How about this one? What do you guys think of this? I move the board reject the construction contract for refurbishment of the supply building and have the structure painted yellow by staff. What do you think of that?
It's 2 motions.
Say that louder, Zach.
It's 2 different things.
Yeah, that's a double-barreled motion. You don't get to do that. Yeah, we're doing 2 things. And one is painting the supply shed, and then the other, or the supply building. And then what about that first action? I move the board reject the construction contract. Yeah, Sophie.
You just told us only do things we're going to do, not what we're not going to do.
Yeah, exactly. If you don't want to approve the contract, vote it down. Or don't even take up the motion. But we don't reject a contract. That it even not seems kind of nonsensical once you start step back and think about it. So yeah. So this motion would not be in order for a couple of reasons. All right, motion. So a motion like the first one, approving minutes, is in order when no other business is pending. So that's the regular part of it. So there's these things come in order of precedence, and that is on the sheet in front of you. So they are listed in order of precedence. You'll see that a main motion is at the bottom of the list. So there's a bunch of things that come before it. Let's see. Of course, it can be debated. You guys have done this before, and it can be amended. And of course, requires a simple majority. Okay, so there's 8 steps to approving a motion. Of course, we have to have a main motion. Let's say we're going to approve some minutes. I move that the board approve the minutes, right? And then we're going to have a second. What is the second thing? Why do we have that?
So no individual board member takes over the meeting without support.
Yeah, Kevin, you have a thought too?
Yeah, it just allows discussion on the motion.
Well, yeah, it ensures that 2 human beings on this board want to have this conversation. It doesn't mean that you're going to vote for it. And in fact, I have seconded motions that I voted against. I just wanted to have the conversation. I wanted to debate the topic. I wanted to have that conversation with my board. So what it does is it gets it onto the table for you to work with it. So that's all it is. Zach, you're absolutely right. It's just a check to make sure that we want to have this conversation. If we don't have a second, what happens? Motion dies for lack of a second, and we move on. And then we don't have to go do this circle that I'm going to draw here. Okay, so after it's been seconded, this is where the chair restates the motion. So some eloquent motion came out of my mouth, and now my chair has to gather their wits and restate my motion. This is where writing it down is really handy. Then we're going to debate that motion or amend it, but that should be a rarity for the most part. But then we're going to debate or discuss that. And then we're going to restate that motion a third time. So yeah, the first time, right after the second, and then we're restating it. And the reason that we're restating it is we're about to take action. So we're doing a check-in. Debate can last for a while. Even if you're a 7-member board, even if you are limiting your comments to 2 minutes each, that's 14 minutes, almost a quarter of an hour of debate. So it might have slipped somebody's mind exactly what the heck we are about to take action on. So it's important to restate the motion before we take action, and then we go ahead and vote on that. And that can take a few forms. So roll call vote. I think that is the preference of this board, is that you have the board secretary hold roll call. Is that typically what you do?
I'm trying to get us to just do it by acclamation for the most part, unless there's somebody that asks for it to be roll call.
Yeah, voice votes work. Just raise your hands. All those in favor say aye. Those no. And then, Zach's craning his head back and forth, and Celia's trying to keep up and note who said yes and no and all that. So, but it can be quicker. And if you're a board that does a lot of processing outside of your business meetings, you'll often have unanimous votes. And that's because you've dealt with the conflict and all the discussion outside of the business meeting. When you come into the business meeting, it's just, we're going to go ahead and approve this because we've already had the conversation. If you only have business meetings, then you're going to have more contentious debates and you might have some more split votes. Split votes isn't a bad thing. And in fact, if we want to have disagreement, we want to cultivate that. The reason that we have boards, the reason why we do this to ourselves and get on boards and legislatures is because we know that having differing perspectives in the room gets better decisions. It's called the wisdom of the board. So it's important as individuals that we trust the wisdom of the board. So split votes are fine. And if you do this work long enough, you're going to be on the losing side of a vote. It's going to happen. Okay, so we took our vote, whatever form that's going to be. And then the chair announces the result. And then we move on. Now, it is my supreme pet peeve when someone who has voted no on something then wants to talk about why they voted no. It is incumbent on you as board members to voice your dissent during debate. The reason that you're here is to share your perspective. And if you are seeing something that the rest of the group is not, it's really important that you do surface it. Because that means if I'm not seeing that, it means I have a blind spot. I'm not seeing a problem here. And so I need to hear from you what that problem is so I can process that and bring that into my own decision making. So the time to talk about your dissent, why you're voting no, is during debate, not afterwards. The reason people do that is they don't share it during debate, and then they feel bad because they're breaking with the group. And that's a social problem. That's socially uncomfortable. But the reality is you need to do that ahead of time. Any questions about that?
Austin?
I certainly respect what you have to say there. At the same time, though, it is the right of a board member to communicate dissent for the record, per Robert's rules, and also for personal preference. And they could restate that for the record, both in the debate and in the post vote. And I found that has been really helpful, especially when I've served on the Klamath Community College board, and it was really helpful for me to see like past decisions where the dissent was not necessarily reflected in the minutes, but it was reflected in the record of an individual board member's dissent on a decision. And that was really helpful, both on a historical perspective, but also intent of the policies that were passed at the time, the budgets that were passed at the time, and so forth. So I definitely understand it's a pet peeve. But I also greatly respect it from a historical perspective, understanding the dissent and the dynamics of the time.
Yeah, Austin, I really appreciate the spirit in which you're bringing that. I think it's important that if there's a robust debate around a topic and there's dissent there, that needs to be reflected in the minutes. I mean, our minutes should reflect the substance of what was discussed during the meeting. It's not verbatim minutes, but if there was differing views, that should be surfaced during debate for the reason that I already talked about, because not everybody has the same lived experience and expertise. So it's important that we surface that and that should be recorded in the record. So it shouldn't be necessary to then restate why you voted against something, because you should have said it during debate. So, but I completely agree that it needs to be recorded. Okay, I want to keep moving. Okay, so let's dive into amendments. And they're complex. And I would generally say, try to avoid it if you can. Okay, so purpose of amendments is to make a motion better. I mean, that's fundamentally what we're trying to do. We've got a motion. There's something wrong with this. We're going to go ahead and offer an amendment to make it better. So how do we do that? Well, of course, amendments need to be relevant to the main motion. So if we're talking about painting the supply building, we shouldn't be talking about, student affairs. It's just not germane. Of course, they require a second and this is where amendments get complex, is motions to amend can be amended. So this is where it gets really horrible. Okay, so ways to amend, these: add and insert words, strike out and add other words, substitute words. We're changing the wording of the motion. We're changing its meaning in some way. Okay, but this is where it gets complex. So of course, any member can offer an amendment, including the chair. The chair can also, so these are small group rules. The chair can also bring a motion as well. Still requires a second, but the chair can make a motion. Can be debated if the main motion is debatable. There are some motions that can't be debated. Though the ones that are relevant to you are noted on your sheet. So we don't have to go over that. Require majority. So of course they require a majority to adopt it. Okay, this is the slide I wanted to get to because it's horrible. Going multiple layers deep on amendments is really confusing. And this is a time when you want to slow down your process. And writing down motions is really important because the language will get very confusing. So of course, you're going to debate and vote on the primary amendment before voting. Then primary is that second layer down, okay? So I move to amend the amendment by, and we're adding a third layer, right? Voting on the secondary amendment, you have to resolve the secondary amendment before you can go back to the primary amendment. And then you have to go to, and this is the next bullet point, you have to go back and resolve the main motion. So you can see how these act like they're tiered. And so you have to resolve them in order. Secondary has to be resolved. Then you can go to the primary amendment, and then you can go to the main motion. And you could say, I've got a stop sign there. No more than 2 amendments can be considered on a main motion. And there's a very good reason for this. Because if you do that, you will explode in a blinding flash of light. And so it's horrible. So yeah, we don't do that because it's just too complex. The reality is that if you need a tertiary amendment to a main motion, you're not ready to approve the motion. You're not ready to do that work. You're going to want to take up a motion to postpone, punt that motion down a meeting, get it in, then do the homework, have the discussions that you need to have, and then bring it back. If there is operational necessity where you have to take up this motion and approve it, I would recommend, you're going to have to probably recess, discuss some language to get to, and then follow a procedure to achieve that language. But that is going to be a vanishingly rare situation where your president has come to you and says, I need approval on this particular item because we have to implement it tomorrow or the next day before our next meeting. That's a very rare situation. Austin, I see your hands up.
Wouldn't you table it at that point in time, instead as well? That's another option.
I love that you brought up the term table. Hey, we're going to make a distinction between tabling and postponing. So hold that question. We're going to talk about that. But yes, you're thinking of delaying tactics. How do we delay this so we can come back to it and reformulate it? Okay. So this is a diagram. What you'll see in just a minute is a diagram, because I'm a visual person. So I created this to help sort this out for myself, how to sort out, what are the basic parliamentary functions that we have to go through to do the vast majority of our work. Okay. So we've already covered everything we need to know so far, except for postponement, which we'll go over in just a little bit. Okay. So we know about main motions, right? You guys are schooled on this. You're comfortable. We have to get a second, and we're going to debate on that, right? So if we're going to just proceed to make the decision, we go, hello? Can you advance my slide? Someone? Yeah, give me a click. I don't know why. Did I turn my thing off? No. There we go. So yeah, after we've exhausted discussion, we can go ahead and go to a vote. If we vote yes, we take that action and then we move on. Okay. Let's see, what's our next one? We can also amend that motion, so we can get a motion to amend. You see that requires a second. We're going to debate that motion to amend. And then we have to make a decision on that, right? So and let's say in this instance, we vote no, we're not going to amend our main motion, and which takes us back to debate, right? We're going to talk about the main motion again. This is just another way of showing that diagram with all the amendments. Or if we decide, yes, we want to amend it, again, we come back to the amended main motion. It's going to be changed based on the approved amendment to it. Okay. And coincidentally, a friendly amendment just simply circumvents this particular procedure right here. So if during discussion debate, I would offer a friendly amendment, it just stops that procedure of motion to amend, second, having discussion on it, and then taking a vote. So that's what a friendly amendment does. Yeah, Steve.
Can you tell us what the process is to end debate and move to a vote?
Yeah, I will talk about that as well. So these are all maneuvers that we have within it. But yes, I will discuss ending debate. Yeah, that's calling the previous question is what that's called. Okay, so amending. So we say, yes, we have an amended main motion. Okay, so say we don't want to deal with this. It's too complex. It's horrible. We can't deal with it today. And today we're going to push this. So then we take up a motion to postpone. Of course, it needs a second. We're going to vote on that. And then that takes it to an upcoming meeting. This will address these maneuvers here. And I'll put them all up here. And of course, if we don't postpone, that means we have to deal with it, which takes us back to debate. And so we're going to debate that main motion. So this is the whole thing. If you can stomach all of this, this will cover 95, 99% of everything that you will have to do. You're going to have things that you're going to want to get done. Some people are going to want to change it. You're going to need to be able to process that. There will be from time to time things that you can't make a decision on that night, and you'll have to postpone. If you can get through all of this, you got it pretty much whipped. Okay. So let's jump forward. That's just a restatement of that. So let's get into these snazzy maneuvers that we were talking about. Good. I have 45 minutes. Okay. So receiving reports. This is something that you do. And this is an area that we have confusion because it's not a working board, but boards often will get reports before taking action. It's something that's fairly routine, I know, for school boards and probably for you guys as well. So you have staff that come before you and they have some information that they want to share with you, and then they have an item for action. Pretty typical for governing boards. So what we're going to do is we're going to just go ahead and hear that report. It's fine. They're going to share information with you. You can ask clarifying questions of staff. That does not count as debate. You're hearing a report and you're, having a conversation, eliciting more information out of those experts that are in the room. Because let's be clear, there's no expectation that anybody sitting in these seats has any expertise in pedagogy or andragogy or school administration or running colleges or any of this. When I put my tush in a school board seat, I didn't know anything about schools or how they worked or any of that stuff. I don't have any training in that. And so it's important that we're taking reports from staff, from the experts. They're the trained professionals. Okay. So that's more roles and responsibilities. I got off on a tangent there. So you're welcome to ask those clarifying questions and have that conversation. The key thing here is that we don't want to deliberate on it because we don't have a motion on the table. We're not taking action yet. We're just getting information. We're in a receptive mode. We're not in a decision-making mode. So if it is for action, staff will probably bring a proposed motion. Is that true? Do you guys typically bring a proposed motion? Yeah,
Many
for action.
times.
Yeah. Pretty typical to have that. Of course, as we've seen, that can get amended, so it can be changed. But that's the point when the chair says, "I'll now entertain a motion on this." Someone makes the motion, gets it on the table, and then we can go ahead and have a discussion about the merits of the motion. Now, there may be times when you take an aside, but you should have gotten most of the information or all the information you need out of staff. They can actually leave the table and it's now in the board's hands. Does that make sense? That liminality between being receptive and then stepping into that decision-making role. Because sometimes boards get confused with that. Okay. Do I have any more bullet points? Nope. And then we vote on the motion, of course. We go ahead and process it just like the way that we've discussed. Okay. Okay, Austin, this is your slide. Motions to postpone and to table. So these are often we get this wrong. So typically what we're talking about usually what we want to do is we want to take an item and put it onto another meeting. And that is a motion to postpone. So it sets a motion aside outside of the current meeting. You can do this definitely or indefinitely, but I would say the best practice is to have postponing to a definite date, to our next regular business meeting or a specific date that you're going to schedule. Scheduling it indefinitely is like, then it's nebulous. When are we going to get back to this topic? And so I like clarity. Of course, this needs a second limited debate. So it's just on the merits of postponing the item, not on the item itself. And of course, it's an action of the board's simple majority and it is amendable. What this usually gets confused with, usually we think that's tabling. We're going to table this until our next meeting. Not so, because tabling is within the context of the meeting. It's not till the next meeting. So the reason usually when we need to table something is say we're receiving a report from staff, but that staff member isn't available when their agenda item comes up. So the board can take up a motion to table that until that staff member arrives. And then you can go ahead and take a motion to take it off the table. Okay. Is that clear as mud? Yeah, Zach.
So if somebody tables something, it's till later within that meeting, not to a later date.
Yeah, and notice that anything left on the table at the end of the meeting, the motion dies. It goes away and it has to be represented. Okay. And under Robert, this is a way that you can actually kill motions, is to table and then not take it up. It should not be used that way. It's pretty rare when you're going to use actually use tabling. Most of the time, you're going to be postponing something. That's usually what we end up doing. It's just that for whatever reason, we get these two transposed. And people say, I want to table, and we're tabling into an upcoming meeting. And that's not correct in the strict sense. Okay. Taking for the table is just a simple motion. So if something is on the table, say we did table something until the end of the meeting, until our staff member showed up, then we do need to go ahead and take a vote on that. So it's a motion to take from the table, and it just needs a second. It can be, and it's not amendable. It's a very simple process. Pro tip here, use unanimous consent. Without objection, the board will take from the table the report for this item that we had previously scheduled.
So the chair can do that.
Yeah, the chair can do that. So yeah, unanimous consent is a great tool to use, particularly for non-controversial maneuvers like this, where, nobody's going to object probably. So it obviates a vote. You don't have to do a roll call vote, which can take, 2 minutes. You do that 5 times, you saved yourself 10 minutes of meeting time. And your meeting time, how often do you guys meet?
Twice a month.
Twice a month. Okay. For about what, 3 hours or so?
Sure.
Longer.
Sure.
Okay. So Vince's first axiom, no good board work happens after 9 p.m. You are all human. You may not think you are, but you are. And you get tired. These guys get tired too. And these guys have to get up early and come back to work and serve, your students. So we want to be mindful of running late. Okay. That was just a little more board roles and responsibilities admonishment. Oh, Steve, you have your hand up. Jump in there.
Yeah, would you just go back very briefly to the previous slide?
Yes, sir.
Oh, there it is. Okay, I did not see that postponement needed a vote, but it does. That's what I was double checking. Thanks.
Yes, sir, it does. It is a motion. So yeah, I move to postpone to our next regular meeting is what that would
Yeah,
say.
no, that makes sense. Okay,
Yep, it's a good one. Yeah, that's a very handy one. Keep that in your hip pocket when you get things. Okay, so we talked about unanimous consent, taking from the table. Let's move on. Okay. Austin, was it you that asked about limiting debate? Well, no, this is not calling.
That was me.
Yeah, so this is akin to that. This is limiting or extending debate. So limiting debate, obviously, it sets a fixed time for how much time we're going to debate something. More frequently, I see boards using extending debate. And we're going to use some of our meeting time that we have to continue this, this tough topic. And so that may require that you do some triage and decide what things on your agenda you may have to set aside and postpone. Okay, and so what that'll look like is that you'll take up a motion to extend debate on a particular topic, useful in a time scale or with chewy topics. Chewy topics are ones that are controversial and that we have strong feelings about, and so we want to process that. And so you probably want to allow extra time to do that work. And then if you're going to amend the agenda, then the chair can go ahead and say without objection, we will postpone the whatever agenda item to our next meeting. Without objections, you can go ahead and do that. Okay. Set time limits needed. Okay, so can't be debated, and needs a 2/3 majority. Okay, and the reason, and you'll notice in Robert was savvy about this. Anything that limits the ability of board members to speak frequently requires a supermajority. So if you're going to limit speech, chances are really good that you're going to need a 2/3 majority. So to limit or extend debate, you need a 2/3 majority, a supermajority, which is 4 or 5 of your members, because you're a 7. So 5 have to vote in the affirmative to go ahead and change the duration of these agenda items. Okay. Because if you're extending one, you're expanding this, and you're probably shortening or eliminating other agenda items on that agenda. So you're limiting people's ability to speak. Does that make sense? I see nodding heads. Yeah, Denise.
Thank you. Whoops. Thanks. When there's limits set before a debate begins, my experience with time constraints and limits is like a hopeful because one never knows exactly how the discussion or the debate may go. And so it seems like if you put so it's a hopeful, so you say you're going to do 20 minutes on such a thing, and people second it, and that can't be debated or amended. But yet many times you may find yourself, outside of what you guesstimated was going to be the time frame.
Yeah, that's why I said most frequently, boards don't limit their debate. What they're doing is actually extending the amount of time that they're allowing for debate is typically what happens. Yeah, Zach.
In terms of setting limits before debate begins, that would be done by a vote of the board to limit the debate first, correct?
Correct.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not a big fan of limiting discussion. Yeah, I think more discussion is better to a point, as long as it's productive. Okay, any more questions on limiting or extending debate? You're probably not going to use this that often. Pretty rarely. Ending debate, well, this is a mixed bag. So this is, this question came up. How do we end debate? So someone can call the previous question. That's what it's called. And ends debate, draws it closed. It does need a 2/3 majority because this is one member says, I don't want to discuss this anymore. I want to move to vote. And all y'all need to be quiet is really what this is saying. So yeah, it does need a second. So 2 people need to support this at least. And we don't debate it. We don't amend it. We just vote on it, and it needs a 2/3 majority. My sense is this is pretty rude. I'm a pretty direct person. I like really efficient meetings. That's my meeting style, is very linear, and I like efficient meetings. But not everybody processes like me. Some people do process a lot. Some people need to talk about things to process and get to the place where they can cast a vote. And that's okay. And so I think this is a pretty rude maneuver if you use it. But sometimes maybe it's necessary. Yeah, Kevin.
So if a person were to move to call the previous question, they would need recognition by the chair.
Correct.
So I'm sure we've all been in meetings where someone just yells out, "I call the question." But that's not what this procedure is.
No, you should always seek the recognition of the chair before speaking. So, yeah, that's just being respectful and efficient with our time. Because when we're talking over each other, that's not a good way to run a meeting. So, yeah. A good way to circumvent this ever happening is to ensure that all our comments are germane to the motion at hand, so that we're not taking bunny trails and having sprawling conversations, that we're very efficient with our discourse when we're debating an agenda item. Okay. So if you're doing that and you're being efficient with your time, then you're probably not going to have someone get frustrated and call the previous question. Yeah, Denise.
So for me, that begs the question, does the chair in the roles and responsibilities of a chair have the ability to say no?
No, not as well. I suppose they can choose not to recognize that person, but they might get their decision appealed. We're going to go over appeal. And I want to make sure I have enough time for that too. So they could get their decision appealed to not recognize that person, or to say that their motion to call the previous question is out of order. But the ruling of the chair can always be appealed. We'll talk about that here in just a little bit. Any other questions on this? Yeah. Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, but when you say, I imagine there's a whole list of things that fall under the category of out of order. And if the chair is familiar with whatever's on that list of out of order, then that is a tool that the chair uses or can use.
I suppose, but that's a tool that's available to every person on this board. So if something is out of order, you always have point of order. We're going to talk about incidental motions. So a point of order is a way that you guys enforce the rules of your meetings. So it's not just the chair's responsibility. The chair is just the facilitator. It's the whole board's responsibility to maintain the rules of the meeting. So if something is out of order, then you can call a point of order and resolve that. We'll go through that as well. Did that help, Denise? Okay. I want to keep moving. Oh, yeah, taking a break. So this is a fun one. Of course, we know how to recess. We know about this one. So you can schedule recesses. It can be in your agenda. But if you're going to take a motion, it's just a simple motion. I'm not going to belabor it. Recesses usually are for an extended period of time. So like 10 minutes. Enough time for people to go to the bathroom, take a bio break, that sort of thing, get a drink of water. Stand at ease is a really nifty maneuver that most people don't know about. And stand at ease, so recess actually stops the meeting. So we go out of session, people can leave the room and do their stuff. So stand at ease doesn't interrupt the meeting. Basically, members can stand up, step away from the dais a little bit, walk around the room, whatever. Here, let me get the text on the thing. Yeah, and it doesn't take a second, doesn't take debate. Chair can use a unanimous consent. And it's just for a pause. Now, this is a great situation. If you have a procedural question or something where you just want to discuss it for just a few minutes, like 2-3 minutes, the chair can say, without objection, the board will stand at ease. You're free to step out, get up out of your chairs. And then that gives you a little time to, put your head together with a parliamentarian or whatever the issue is. We saw in school boards, we saw this being used during the pandemic to address disrupted meetings where people in the audience were getting unruly. So then we go ahead and have the board stand at ease. Everybody get out of their chair. They start milling around. And now there's no audience for my misbehavior in the audience. And it kind of resolve things. Also allowed people to go address the issue with folks in the audience, let them know that their behavior was inappropriate. So that's another way that you can use stand at ease. Really handy maneuver if you just want to take a quick break, check a rule, check information, whatever, anything like that. Yeah.
So why use it? I mean, I mean, are we still, is the meeting still in, it hasn't been recessed, it hasn't been stopped. I mean, are members allowed to leave the room?
No,
I see. So we're just not having to sit and be at attention,
Right.
supposedly, but
Yeah.
we're not allowed to leave the room. It's
yeah, you
not a
don't leave
break.
the room.
I
And
got
then when the chair's ready, they'll go ahead and tap the gavel and say, we'll come back
Understood.
to order.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure there was like what the distinction was.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's yeah.
But if any member didn't want to go to a stand at ease, they could not.
They could
do it
object.
with Unanimous consent.
And then you could put it to a vote but usually, I mean, taking a 3-minute, step back just so you can check a rule, get on the phone call with a staff member to get some information that the board needs, something like that. It's, something a little quick and dirty like that. Questions about that? Taking breaks? Yeah, Lisa?
Can you recess using unanimous consent?
Sure.
That's what I've seen used for a disrupted meeting, and particularly if there's a need to move to a safe space.
Absolutely. Yeah.
When does a read and recess, do you need to define the amount of time?
Yeah, and that's going to be contextual, particularly in a disrupted meeting and particularly the type of disrupted meeting that you're talking about. So the Ben Lapine meeting, they did this a couple times. Yeah, they had where they were fully disrupted. The audience would not come to order. They just went into recess and reconvened virtual. And you legally can do that. Yeah, if you lose control of your meeting, yeah, that's what I recommend is just pivot to virtual. But also keep in mind, you got to be safe too. If you have disrupted meetings and you're going virtual, I didn't intend to talk about disrupted meetings tonight, but since you brought it up, understand that you still have to be able to go out in the parking lot and get in your car and get home. I mean, seriously. I mean, there have been incidents where people have been followed to their car, people have been followed home. So, if you're in that situation or you don't feel that you're going to be safe, adjourn the meeting. It's not worth it. We are not launching rockets into space. We're not working on people's brains. This is school governance, okay? Most of what we do can wait a couple weeks and we can come back to it, okay? Don't put yourselves in harm's way. You don't need to do that. Okay. I do also teach disruptive meetings, by the way. That's a topic that I taught a lot during the pandemic. So happy to come back and talk about that as well. Bring something back. So yeah, if we delay something or we want to, or oops, we did something wrong, then we might want to bring that back. So motion to reconsider. I've only used this one in 10 years. I used it once, but we really needed this maneuver to get it right. So this motion to reconsider brings back an item within the context of the meeting or the same day. For boards, it's, we're talking about, within the context of a meeting. The key thing here, a motion to reconsider has to be made by someone on the prevailing side. So this is if you voted on something, made a decision, then realize, we made a mistake and you want to bring it back. And I was on the winning side, I can make a motion to reconsider. Okay. Pretty rare, but when you need it, you need it. Okay. So keep that. This is why you keep these sheets in front of you, because if you need to bring something back, you want to have this close at hand. Okay. So there's another one here. This is a motion to rescind or amend a previous decision. So this is if you made the decision, adjourn the meeting, weeks have elapsed, and it's, we need to back up and undo this, or we need to amend it if it's amendable. Because some actions, if it's to demolish the supply building, you made that motion and approved the construction contract to destroy the supply building. And then they went ahead and did that, executed the contract, construction crew came in and demolished it. No point in rescinding that decision because it's been demolished. Okay. So whatever action you took has to be rescindable. Okay, for you to rescind it. So it cancels or changes a previous action of the board. It does require a 2/3 vote. Okay. For you functionally, it's going to take a 2/3 vote because typically you're going to have the whole board present. It's going to be, again, this is going to be a rare maneuver, but it's an important one to have in your hip pocket because sometimes you're going to need it. Yeah.
This says majority.
That's if 2/3 previous notice, if you have previous notice. Or if you don't give previous notice, you need a 2/3 majority or the whole board present. Again, you're going to have plenty of time to go over it ahead of time. And if there's a way I can make that more clear on that sheet, let me know because I would love to improve that. Okay, time. Incidental motions. Oh my goodness. Yes. Oh, we're to the fun part. Good. Incidental motions. Okay. Point of information. So this is an important one. If for whatever reason, I don't feel comfortable casting my vote, I don't have all the information I need. I'm going to ask a point of information. Mr. Chair, point of information. What's your point? What's the budgetary impact of this decision that we're about to make? So it's a request directed at the chair for information relevant to the business. You can interrupt. You can interrupt your colleagues with this if they yield. Okay. If they don't want to yield, then you have to be polite and let them continue speaking. So there's no second or debate. It's kind of like point of order. It's just a point of information. Okay. Any questions about point of information? Okay, let's get to the good one. Point of order. This is your secret weapon. If anything goes wrong, anything is not going quite right procedurally, this is how you pump the brakes and stop the meeting and do a check-in. Okay. So it's a way to call out a procedural mistake. You can interrupt a speaker and there's no seconds or debates, no amendment. The chair is going to rule on that point of order. It interrupts the meeting, stops it dead in its tracks. Okay. So I have a cool. I'm sorry, folks online. I wish you could be here to do my role play here. So Kevin, I did this in response to your coaching.
Thank you, Vince.
So, Lisa, will you be board member 1?
Sure.
And then, let's see. Yeah, you can be board member 2.
Okay.
Well, let's hear that one because it's a lot of fun. You have to be the chair. And then Julie, you can be board member 3 and board member 4. And then I'm going to share this for the record. Anybody else who knows to follow along? Okay. So normally I just throw this on a slide, but I thought, wouldn't it be fun to actually walk through this? Oh, wait, I need this. All right. So points of order. So when we're making, see, I told you it would be fun. So yeah. So sometimes we say things that are inappropriate in meetings. That happens from time to time. So yeah, let's do this first one. So yeah, board member 1, go for it.
Chair, I rise to a point of order.
State your point.
Director Adams has used the term warthog face buffoon in referring to the superintendent.
Oh, I should have said president. That would have been better.
According to Robert's rules and the rules of this board, insults are not allowed in debate.
The point is well taken. Members will refrain from using improper language.
So that's what a point of order feels like.
Motion to adjourn. I'm just kidding.
You still have business. Oh, I love that he phrased that as I think I have adjournment up here. So we'll talk about that here in just a sec, maybe. Okay, so that's what it feels like. Let's move on to the second one. This is a real scenario. I wasn't the member that made the comment, but this is a real scenario. This actually happened. Yeah.
Chair, I rise to a point of order.
State your point.
Director Adams has used the idiom circle the wagons in referring to supporting this student group. That idiom is harmful to certain ethnic groups in our district and is not aligned to the board's priority for inclusion.
The point is well taken. Members will refrain from using improper language that may be harmful.
Okay, so this happened with my board. We had a new member. She was native, had one of our members use circle the wagons. It was a tough moment, but point of order. And we processed that. And it went down pretty much like that. You know, there was a little explanation of why that was harmful, but this is a great way. You know, often we hear a narrative that Robert is a barrier to inclusion. I would argue the opposite, that it ensures all voices can be heard. You set the norms of what's acceptable in your boardroom. And by using point of order, we can process those hard, sometimes tough things. Look, I'm a white guy and I have all sorts of harmful idioms that have been programmed into my brain, and sometimes they get out my mouth. And so it's important that we have mechanisms to check that, stop it, and then so we can all learn together. Okay. All right. So then, okay. So that's point of order. Any questions about point of order? It's when we have to stop. Something's procedurally incorrect. Say that we did a motion wrong or something like that. We can raise a point of order. Hey, I think we did this wrong. And then if, you know, we feel at sea about that, we're not sure about what the right thing to do is, you could stand at ease, go get out Robert's Rules of Order, and I would recommend this book. I said all the books that you weren't supposed to buy. This is the one you need to buy. And this is the one I would recommend. Also, you know, you have this, you can take that test. Snap a picture of it. Written by the same people, but it's a condensed version. Sorry. Anyway, you can take the time to go ahead and process that, get clear on the rules, and then start the meeting again and go ahead, process the point of order, make the correction and move on. Okay.
Denise?
Thank you, Denise.
Thank you. Do most boards or many boards have a designated parliamentarian?
Oh, wouldn't it be great if they did? Often, I know in K-12 land, it's often the board secretary who is the district parliamentarian, which is actually good because while, you know, superintendents come and go and boards come and go, and I'm sure it's the same kind of with colleges as well. It's often the board secretary who has that institutional knowledge, has skilled up in parliamentary procedure, knows where the bodies are hidden. Might have put them there. I mean,
I'm not saying,
so,
all right.
no, board secretaries are amazing. So I don't know, Celia, is that role that you take?
We had general counsel for a while, so I've been taking parliamentarian courses this summer to try to catch up on it.
Yeah, good. So yeah, larger districts do often have attorneys that will act as parliamentarians as well. They get training in parliamentary procedure. So no, typically not. There isn't a designated parliamentarian. So often boards, and particularly for small districts, they're making it up as they go. They're learning and trying to figure it out. Can be pretty gritty. Good question. I'm trying to be mindful of time. Okay, appeal. So I really want to emphasize this. It is the board's meeting. The chair, unenviable position. It truly is. But they're the facilitator for the group. But it is the board's meeting, okay? And so sometimes chairs make mistakes. And sometimes the wrong person is the chair for the board and they become overbearing and boorish. And so sometimes we have to appeal rulings. So this is the procedure for that. So any ruling of the board can be appealed. Of course, it does require a second. Some appeals can be debated, but questions of decorum, like we're going to go over here in just a moment, are not debatable. And the chair needs to explain the ruling because it can be confusing. But the trick to doing this is the question before the board is, shall the chair's decision be upheld? Is what you're voting on. So that's how you phrase that. So if God forbid your board ever appeals your decision, that's what's in your head. Shall my ruling be upheld? Okay, and then you explain it that way.
Yeah, do you want to suss that out in terms of,
Yes, we actually have a scenario. So this is appeal for a possible insult. It's actually a continuation of our first one. So
How do you call that an appeal? So we've now been having discussions. So if I wanted to, my role is to appeal this, what would I say? Excuse me, Chair. I'd like to
you could say it that way, or you could just yell appeal.
appeal. Okay.
Yeah, just say appeal.
Appeal.
What is your appeal?
but in this case, the yays are to affirm the decision of the chair and
Yeah.
the nays are to negate the decision of the chair,
Correct.
overturn the decision.
Yeah, that's how we should do it. Let's see if I actually wrote it in the scenario that way. Okay, so who's board member? Oh, thank you, Julie. Start us
Appeal.
off.
Appeal.
So you want to be board number 3?
I am board member.
She's board
Or not.
4.
I'm for, yeah.
Yeah, I'm
I have
three.
a large role.
I appeal the decision of the chair on grounds that warthog-faced buffoon is actually a literary reference and not an insult.
Second.
Thank you. Kevin.
Very well. Since the ruling of the chair has been appealed, the board will decide. Note that appeals pertaining to proper use of language and decorum may not be debated. All those who believe warthog-faced buffoon is an insult, please say aye. All who believe that it is not an insult, please say no.
Okay, and you can vote on this.
No.
Aye.
No.
So the ayes have it. The ruling of the chair is upheld, and members will refrain from using that term. Or the nays have it, referring to someone as a word-faced.
Does anybody recognize that delightful insult? It's from The Princess Bride. Now you're going to have to go back and watch the movie again.
I don't think that word means what you think it means.
Was it used as an insult?
Yeah. I've also used cream-faced loon, which is from Shakespeare. I forget which one it is. Anyway, so appeal. You're a nice group of people. You're probably never going to have to use it, but understand that it's there if you need to. Okay. Elections. I wanted to touch on that. Oh, I've got a few more minutes. Good. So just wanted to touch on this. It's for assigning officers and filling vacancies. Is typically how you're going to use that. Potentially you could do it for committees, but that's pretty rare. You will take nominations. Nominations don't require a second, just to clear the air on that. You just blurt out someone's name, and if they take you up on it, then they're not nominated. Chair, when you're closing closing nominations, you have to state it 3 times. That's a very arcane rule of Robert. If you don't, that's fine, as long as everybody understands that you're closing nominations for the position. You can do it with a ballot or roll call. The key thing here is that for your board, the position of each director has to be recorded for the minutes. So if you're going to do ballots, you have to put your name on the ballot and then put who you're voting for. And then that goes to the board secretary so it can go in the minutes. You should probably announce it too, so we don't have to wait until the minutes come out to find out how you voted. Okay, because we want to be transparent and we're recording it anyway. Yeah, chair announces results and election by acclamation. So if there's only one person that's nominated for a position, you can elect them by acclamation. Nobody else. So the chair just declares them as the new whatever officer or whatever position they're in. Okay. Yes.
So we've had questions about this in the past of, do we take a motion to appoint an individual person as chair? But if there's a second nomination, it's like, well, what do we do first? Is that the appropriate way of doing things, is to accept a motion for a single person that seems to be able to get a majority and then have the vote on that? Or is there another process when you have multiple people that are up for a single position?
Yes, you can take up a motion to appoint. You're appointed, of course, we can't take multiple actions, so you can only appoint one person at a time. But yes, you can do that.
What would the other alternative be?
Do an election. So that's
have this
usually how that goes
person-
down. So
this
say-
person or that person and vote for who you want.
Yeah, and then whoever gets, whoever gets 4 votes in the affirmative is then elected to that position. Whereas if it's a motion to appoint, then of course you need 4 votes again.
Thank you.
So yeah, you can do it either way, and both are totally appropriate. Okay, what else did I have in here? We are not going to do scenarios because we do not have time. So I'm just going to zip through these really quick. These are all really fun videos that, well, they're fun to pick at. I will talk about expectations of the parliamentarian. You does require a certain level of expertise, but you only have to be an expert on the information that's on that sheet in front of you. Because that's really all you need to get your work done, okay? You need to support adherence to the rules. And you all are empowered to assist in maintaining order by using point of order. Support efficient conduct of business and always upholding the principle of democratic rule. You are elected, a locally elected board, and I would argue that you are the bedrock of American democracy. If we expect politics to be effective in the United States, we've got to get it right. And we should lead by example. Goodness knows your students are watching. Okay. So there's some seriousness to this as well. Let's see. Yeah, this is research aimed at school boards, but I am betting that it's true for college boards as well. That how individual members show up in the boardroom affects how the board does its work. It affects the board culture over time and organizational culture. And that finds its way into classrooms and student outcomes. I know it's true for K-12 education that there is a causal link between school board performance and practice and impacts on students. So how you conduct your business matters, and it has impacts on your students. So don't ever think that you're wasting your time. I'm coming skidding in with 4 minutes to spare. I think, yeah, individual. I put nice little arrows in there. This isn't the only thing I do. I don't normally get to talk about parliamentary procedure. So thank you so much for indulging me. It's a topic I really enjoy and love. I think it's powerful and important, but we do lots of other things. I mean, we're all at OSBA, we are laser focused on how boards impact kiddos and students. And so if you want to talk more about that, how you can improve your practice to impact your students, I would love to have that conversation with you. We also do board self-assessment. We do assessments on chief executives. We do lots of different things. We do run into burning buildings when boards are really struggling. Yeah, Julie.
I just have, there's been a couple of questions that have been brought to you during this training that were different than what you had stated. So like one of our members brought up a question about friendly amendments and you're like, well, it could be that, or it could be, and then another member brought up a question about nominations and elections. And it's like, well, you could do that, or you could do that. My question to you is what happens as a board when we're faced with a disagreement amongst members of whether or not a friendly amendment is allowed or whether it's not, or whether or not we really should go with elections or whether we should be able to make a motion and appoint. So what would be your guidance to us as a board as to how do we navigate that disagreement or just, a dispute of opinions on how we interpret things or how we should operate? Is that a board policy that we should create as a board that these will be the things we do, or?
Could be. Policy is strong and rigid. You might have an operating agreement. Ultimately, it's up to you. I mean, if you do a friendly amendment, if Austin offers a friendly amendment, I am not going to parachute into your meeting and waggle my finger at you. Thank you for getting the joke. Yeah, I mean, it's up to you. So I would put it to if I was chairing your board, I would put it to the board. What is acceptable and what is not acceptable. And for things like meeting procedures, it's nice to write those things down, particularly if you're going to have house rules where you're going to deviate from Robert. I'm not saying don't do it. I'm just giving you best practice is all. And codify it and make sure that it's clear for all members so there's no confusion. There should never be surprises. And that's true. And that's, we're just talking about meeting procedure, but that's true about any sort of things about how we operate as a governing board, how we talk in public, how we talk to each other in the room, how do we talk to our chief executive? There is any number of things that can find its way into an operating agreement or a policy.
Thank you.
Happy to help you with that too.
Okay, Austin.
I just really quickly want to just absolutely thank you for the presentation. Oregon School Board Association, I feel like, is one of the most underutilized resource amongst boards across K through 12 and community colleges. So I really want to emphasize the training and the resources that Oregon School Board Association has. And just a sneak peek, we're going to be voting on a resolution that involves the Oregon School Board Association. We did this several times before, but it's involving the fees that we pay for the Oregon School Board Association. They're asking for an increase for the first time in 20 plus years, but those fees and those things that we pay for go towards services like this to our boards across the state. I think it's a great investment of not only for our institution, but the institutions across the state. So FYI, that's going to be coming down the line, but this is what it pays for, and the ROI is incredible. So Vincent, thank you for your time and the services that you and your colleagues at Oregon School Board Association do.
Thanks, Austin. I'll get that $50 to you next week.
Any final questions or comments from the board? Okay, with that, thank you so much for coming tonight.
Thanks so much, folks. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
We have about 14 minutes until we have our executive session starting at 8, and I would like to provide enough time for a short break before that. So what I would actually like to ask is that we have a motion to postpone the review of board policies to our next meeting. So there would be a first reading at our October work session or
Regular meeting, you could have the first read at the regular meeting. The action would be taken at the November meeting, very likely.
Second.
And so, yeah, so I guess I'll just frame that as a motion. So I move that we postpone the board policies to the first, to have a first reading at the.
Yep, I second the motion.
At the October regular meeting, seconded by Steve. Any discussion?
I just have a question. How will this impact the institution?
The first read would happen at the October 9th meeting, second read at the work session, and then the vote would take place at the first November meeting. Because these are policies that are they're the 3-digit policies, the current policies, and they're under review, so they need to be reviewed. I don't believe it's Kara on the line at all. Kara is. Kara, if you can let us know what the impact is at all to the policies that there were 2 of them in the packet that you had some changes to. Is there any issue with that? I'm sorry, is she on?
I'm really trying to unmute. So
Okay.
the button keeps moving around. There is no impact. These policies just haven't been updated for some time. So we wanted to make sure we got them on the agenda and started getting through them and get them updated. But no impact because this particular round has no substantial changes. So no impact for us. We're good.
Great. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Apologies for keeping you this late and having you have to come back. So with that, we'll take all in favor of postponing the board policies, say aye.
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 Okay, and any opposed? Okay, looks like unanimous yeses on that one. So with that, we'll close out our final topics here. So first is our work session topic request form. And so we have put together a form to request meeting topics that includes basically the main topic idea as well as sub questions that then we can bring that back to the board to get if at least 3 out of the 7 members are in support of having a work session on that topic, we'll have a work session. So are there any questions, comments, or suggestions from board members on the form that you should have received in the board materials? Lisa.
Yeah, so would the idea be to submit this prior to a meeting and then we could, and then we can make a decision in the meeting and then it would be acted upon? Not that it would be submitted in one meeting. I'm just trying to think about how to be most efficient so this doesn't get dragged out over a large
Right.
period of
I
time.
I think what would be best is if people tried to submit it at least a week ahead of any board meeting, they would like it to be considered at, and we'll have it go out with the other board materials. So that in our closing items, it will be, support this work session poll. And it'll be a 5 minutes at the end where people can indicate their support for any work session polls received in the 2 weeks before that meeting.
May I have a follow-up question?
Yes.
So what if a request, like we're having a conversation in a meeting and a request comes up in the meeting? Can we request it during the meeting? So for example, at the end during comments and questions, could we say, I'd like to have a follow-up information about what was discussed tonight, and we could ask if there's support for that?
Technically, yes, but I will ask that if you can try to use the forum when able to have basically the questions that you want covered during the work session fleshed out prior, that would be helpful. So please use the forum and we'll try and make it work. But if something comes up that is time sensitive, then we can take that into account at the time. And if it's not time sensitive, then potentially we could wait 2 weeks so that that process can be used. Austin and then Julie.
Yeah, I just want to advocate for the opportunity for board members to be able to say something verbally in a board meeting for a future topic. That being said, I'm more than happy to use this form, and I can see that there's an opportunity to attach documents. So if there's documents applicable to the subject matter, we can attach it to the form, correct?
I believe that is correct. So-
Yeah, I'm looking at the doc. Excuse me. I'm looking at the document. It looks like there's an opportunity to attach, and just wanted to verify that that is an option because I think that's a great bonus of the use of this form.
It's a Google form, so there's no attachment, but if you want to email me after you submit the form with an attachment, I will include it.
Fantastic. Great. Thank you.
Okay. And then final items, any board member questions and comments?
Oh, sorry.
Austin, did you have one? Go ahead.
Yeah, just again, we had an excellent presentation from our students and student services. I really want to thank them for that. And just the dynamics that we had last year, which was to allow for students to be able to speak first at public comment. Many of our students, they have to catch the bus, they have jobs that they have to go to, childcare and so forth. So being able to allow them to be able to speak first at public comment, I think is very important for a student-centric board process. So if we could just continue that tradition, that best practices, I think that would be really beneficial for our institution and for us as a board.
Okay. Last item on the agenda is future meeting dates. So just wanted to remind folks, we have the American Community College Trustees Leadership Conference in Seattle, October 23rd to 26th. The OCCA, Oregon Community College Association Annual Conference, November 6th to 8th on the coast. And then in February next year, we'll be looking at the American Community College Trustee National Legislative Summit in Washington, D.C. And I just wanted to just double check with folks. By a show of hands, who's planning on going to the ACCT Leadership Conference in Seattle in October? Okay, so just Kevin. Was there anyone else that had an interest in that?
Well, Chair, I'll be attending, but I'll be attending as an OCCA representative, so won't need to request reimbursement from the college.
You will or will not want reimbursement?
Will not.
Okay, and then for the OCCA conference, who's planning on going to that?
I have to be there.
Julie, myself, and Austin. Similar to Austin, are you also participating in that as a OCCA member?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and again, will not require reimbursement from college.
Great. And then for DC for February, I just wanted to gauge if there was anybody that had a particular interest in attending DC for the legislative lobbying sessions that will occur in February. If anybody wants to just say that you might be interested now, and then we can follow up.
I might be interested, yes.
Okay, yeah, Julie and Austin, okay, and you as well. Sophie.
And again, I will not request any reimbursement from the college.
Okay. I think we basically have enough funding to send one person to Seattle and one person to DC as is currently allocated. So I think we can hopefully figure out a way to have everybody that wants to go within that limitation. But it sounds like we don't necessarily, we don't have a second or third person that would want to go. So I think we're okay there.
Chair. Chair, I just wanted to mention that the ACCT Leadership Congress, there is a voting delegate that needs to be appointed by the board. It appears that it's going to be Kevin Alltucker because he's going to the Leadership Congress. And what the voting delegate does is basically it completes a ballot for the ACCT boards on behalf of the Lane Community College Board. We have one vote. So just wanted to mention that.
Do we need to vote on that as a board?
Oh, I don't think so because we have only one person going and that's Kevin Alltucker. So if you wouldn't mind, Kevin, we'll give you the information and if you
Sure.
could vote on behalf of the board.
Okay.
Better vote.
All right. Well, with that, I believe that we are all set on our meeting. And so with that, our meeting is adjourned. We will be starting in 5 minutes with an executive session. So please